All right, yo. I just want to quickly hop on this live stream. It's a little bit late. I don't know if I'll be on here for long. Can't speak that loud either. But with everything going on with Tatiana Suarez, man, it's so stressful. As a fan, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like this situation is just making me nervous as someone who's, had hopes for her future. In terms of being a world champion, fighting for the title, we go from she has a fight booked against someone where it's not for the belt. I complain, but then after a while, it's like it is what it is. No point complaining. She just has to show up and win this fight, and then in the end, she gets the title shot if she can make it to December 7th. But now the fight's off. I mean, I don't even know what the heck's going on. But that just begs the question, man. Like, is my girl Tatiana is she cooked? Like, is it over for Tatiana Suarez? It might be. Like, if she really is hurt, or if something really is wrong, she's not getting another title shot. She's not getting or not another title shot. She's never fought for the belt to begin with, so to speak. So she's just not getting a title shot, period. And they'll probably reward Verda Roba with a title shot, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm waiting for Tatiana to spill the beans on this, man. I need Tatiana Suarez to quit being cryptic, quit being quiet, and to, like, I don't know, man, just give some clarity. Give some damn closure on what the heck is going on with this whole situation. Why are you out? Why is the UFC saying you're out, but you're saying you're not injured? And then why did you delete that tweet, bro? Why? I can't fathom it, man. In other news, though, we got Raquel Pennington, who's still running her mouth and complaining about the decision with Juliana Pena. And apparently, she's claiming that she didn't even get hit in that first round, which is absolute cap because the stats show she got outstruck clearly in that first round. And I could see with my own eyes that Juliana Pena was slightly outlanding Raquel Pennington by a small margin. So I don't know what the hell Pennington's on about. I just think she's being delusional and she's coping. She can't accept the fact that she had all the advantages against Juliana Pena in terms of activity, momentum, and she still couldn't get it done. And I mean, even after the fight, you could see in Pennington's face, she didn't look that certain that, she had the win in the bag. Like, I didn't see her with her hand raised prematurely, like, yeah, I won. I have it in the bag. Like, she looked like, okay, it was a close fight. This could go either way. And then, when she didn't get the decision, she looked disappointed, but she didn't look shocked, you know? So I just think it's weird how she walks away from that decision and then acts like she's surprised that she didn't get it. And if y'all haven't seen my UFC 308 prediction video, it's out now. Uploaded it yesterday. And I picked Max, Chimaev, Ankalaev, and I picked who else? Lerone Murphy and Shara Bullet. So I picked like four favorites on the main card, and then to make things interesting, I picked like the one underdog. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of scared that there will be upsets on the card, but Max Holloway is not going to be one of them. Like, I am biased for Holloway, and I've been doing horrible with predictions this year. Like, I started bad, and then I started carrying momentum, and then after Leon Edwards lost to Bilal Muhammad, it just went downhill from there. Like, it took me 2 months to get a title fight pick correct again. I picked with my heart with Adesanya DDP and Adesanya loses. I picked Grasso. She gets schooled. I picked Sean O'Malley when Merab was my initial pick because I lost confidence in Merab. Then he schools Sean. I picked Raquel because I lost faith in my favorite fighters ever being able to win. Then Pena wins. And then I picked Poatan because on paper he was a lock. He was a lock to win that fight, which he did. So I got that one correct, but I don't know. But you know what? I picked Max. There's no going back now. Suarez is like Cain Velasquez. Just mental toughness, body can't hold up because of the training. Yeah, probably. You're probably right. She's kind of like the female Dominic Cruz, female Cain Velasquez. Two Mexican fighters who are really good and levels above most of the fighters in their division during their primes, but just can't stay healthy. Like prime Dominic Cruz in his era, you can't look at Cruz in his era at bantamweight from 2010 to 2016 before he lost to Cody Garbrandt and tell me that any of these guys were on his level, apart from TJ Dillashaw and Prime Renan Barao. But even the Barao fight never happened, and we never got to really see who was like the true king of the bantamweights, which is annoying as fuck because Cruz couldn't stay healthy. And then Cain Velasquez, arguably the best heavyweight in the world when he's healthy. And then after that trilogy with JDS, doesn't fight for 2 years, loses to Verdum, pulls out of the rematch twice, and then doesn't fight for 2 years. Miocic is the new champ who beats the guy who beats him. And then by the time Cain comes back, he's unranked, and they feed him Ngannou of all people, which was horrible matchmaking. Cain dies, retires, and goes to the WWE. It's a sad ending. And then by the time Dominic Cruz finally gets healthy and active, he's not in his prime and going life and death with Casey Kenny. I mean, he schooled Pedro Munoz, to be fair, but he got dropped in the first round, and then dies to Chito Vera and never fought since. And now it's the same thing with Tatiana. She's in her prime right now, and I believe she's the best strawweight in the world. I wholeheartedly believe Tatiana is the best in her division. And I believe she beats Wei Lee, but if she can't stay healthy and active, we're never going to find out. And she just might never become champ. She might go down as the best to never win the belt because she can't stay healthy. And then there's probably going to come a point where it's too late. So even if she does come back, she might not be in her prime anymore and might start losing to top girls in the division who are more active. That's what worries me for Tatiana. Ilya is going to knock him out. I hope not. I hope not, bro. I mean, it's possible, but Max Holloway has never been chinned before. One of the best chins in the UFC. And the reason why I am going with Holloway to win this fight against Topuria is because even though MMA math says Ilya should win because he beat Volk, who beat Max 3 times, Ilya got a bad version of Volk coming off a bad knockout loss, doing a quick turnaround, towards the end of his career, 35 years old. Max Holloway is still young, and he's coming into this fight with momentum, something Volk didn't have. And Volkanovski was actually doing very good in that second round against Topuria. He was kind of putting hands on Ilya. He was out striking him in that round until Topuria got him against the cage and chinned him. But I just feel like against Holloway, it's not going to be that simple as I'm getting pieced up. Okay, I'm going to put hands on you and change the fight. I mean, it could happen. Maybe he's like losing a round until he hurts Max and steals the round for himself. That's very possible. But putting Max out cold, that's a tall task. That's a tall task. Like if Justin Gaethje knocked out Max Holloway and then Max was taking this fight against Topuria, then I'd say, yeah, Topuria is probably going to KO him. But he took the shots of Gaethje. He was arguably a harder puncher than Ilia Topuria. And Max has advantages against Ilia like height. He's rangy. He also has good boxing, maybe not as good as Topuria's, but he has better kicks than Ilya, more versatile striking, and I could just see Max implementing like a kick heavy game plan against Topuria, not sitting in the pocket against him, and not engaging in a pure boxing match. Because obviously, if it's just a pure boxing match, Topuria is going to win. But if there's like kicks involved and stuff, I think it's going to give Max a good chance. And I don't see Holloway making that same mistake that Volk did, where he just backed all the way up against the cage. I think Holloway's gonna like stand his ground, control the center of the octagon, slide out of the way when he needs to, and then get right back in Topuria's face. And whenever Topuria tries to close the distance and pressure, Max Holloway is very dangerous with his counter striking. And yeah, he does struggle against shorter opponents, but he does have ways of approaching shorter guys. I mean, when he fought Edgar, every time Edgar blitzed, Max Holloway would meet him with an uppercut or a knee up the middle or a knee to the body to stifle that pressure. He did the same thing to Volkanovski in the first and the second fight, and it was working in the second fight when he dropped Volk with that uppercut. And he also dropped Volk with a head kick, and Topuria is very susceptible to that high kick. I mean, this guy's been getting dropped by head kicks even before his UFC career. In the regional scene, this guy's getting dropped by high kicks. Jai Herbert's dropping him with head kicks, you know? And also, Max Holloway has a very underrated check hook as well, a check left hook that he cracked Allen with, stunned Gaethje with that same counter hook several times. So I feel like he's going to be able to keep his back off the cage, control the center, and I feel like he's going to be able to counter Ilya whenever Ilya tries to crash forward. Like, I think Topuria is going to have a really hard time imposing his pressure against Holloway. And I see Holloway having more volume throughout the rounds as well. Like, Topuria doesn't have the same level of volume that a guy like Volk does. Volk could match the cardio of Max, he could match the volume of Max. And Volkanovski's very good at breaking rhythms, not letting you get settled into a striking flow to where you can just properly like put together combinations. He just forces you to reset. Where Topuria, he doesn't do that. Topuria doesn't break your rhythm like that. Now, Topuria can just punch you in the face and shut your lights out. But I think Max is going to have a much easier time getting in a striking flow against Topuria than he was against Volkanovski. Suarez trains so hard. I know. She's got to train smarter, not harder. So do a lot of these fighters. What's up, No Filter MMA? Kane, Kane's body fell apart because of training. Yeah, and over the years, it added up, and he just could never stay healthy no matter what. It came to the point where it's like even when Velasquez finally made it to a fight against Ngannou, he makes it through camp but gets injured in the fight. Like a lot of people say that Ngannou just slept him coming forward, which he did, but I really feel like if Cain Velasquez, if his knee didn't give out, when he went for that takedown against Francis, I mean, he was inevitably going to get chinned anyway, but like, I feel like he could have lasted a little bit longer. But I feel like what happened is, as he was going forward and he went for that takedown, I guess when he was trying to move Ngannou's weight, something happened with his knee, and that caused him to fall over, and he just shelled up. And I guess Ngannou's ground and pound might have put him out. I don't know. It was just a very weird finishing sequence. It was just a very weird situation how Kane got finished. But that would not like you can't tell me that that would happen to a 31, 32-year-old Kane Velasquez, a young prime Kane. His knee is not imploding like that in the middle of a fight against Francis Ngannou. He probably still get chinned, but he's not getting injured mid-fight. Yeah, no, Topuria could definitely make some takedowns for sure. I agree. Ilia Topuria is very good at mixing in takedowns. He's got very good wrestling, which he could use on Holloway. And he could definitely use takedowns to slow down Holloway's pressure. Like Topuria could win a decision based off mixing in takedowns and also outpowering Max, out damaging him. and maybe having the more dominant rounds. It's very possible. It's very possible. Can Ilya keep up with Max Holloway's pace? We're gonna have to find out October 26th. It's yet to be seen. I think he could stifle Max's pace because of how hard he hits and because of how good and accurate his boxing is. I feel like because of his power and because he'll like punch with Max whenever Max tries to engage, it could stop Max from snowballing and building momentum. But Max Holloway is still good at fighting at range and sticking and moving, being in and out, and still being effective when fighting that way. Like ever since losing to Volk the first time, Max Holloway like completely adjusted his style. He developed an ability to like counter strike, and I feel like he's adjusted his style to fighting guys like Taporia. Short, stocky, powerful guys. Whereas before he fought Volk, if you remember, Max's style was completely different. He had a boxing heavy stance, and for a while he kind of, strayed away from his kicks. Ever since that first Volk fight, he's been kicking a lot in his fights more, which is very beneficial to Max's style because Max Holloway has lethal and effective kicks, especially that spinning back kick that he throws to the body. And that spin kick that he landed on Gaethje was nasty, where he landed that heel to the nose. I mean, that's Gaethje's fault, though. That's Gaethje's fault for ducking his head like an idiot when Max spun. It's like every time Max Holloway would jump and spin, Justin would dip his head for whatever bizarre reason. And he would keep getting kicked in the face. But it's just crazy how even an accidental kick could do that much damage. Was Tatiana trying to pull out secretly? Don't understand why she was acting like she has no idea why the fight was canceled. Yeah, it's fishy. I don't understand. I don't get why she's acting like, or I don't understand the situation. It's really hard to digest it and process. And it's so sad because when Tatiana came out and said, I'm not injured, I was super relieved. And then I wake up at 4 in the morning and find out, no, it's official. She's out. And Tatiana deletes the tweet. I'm like, what the hell? Tatiana Suarez deleted the tweet, so she is out? Like, what? But then she's continually posting like nothing happened. She hasn't like made an official statement following the pullout news. Like, if you remember, when she pulled out against Montana or Roxanne Modafferi in 2021, she immediately did an Instagram post writing about what happened, explaining what happened, and saying that she's going to come back stronger from this. When she pulled out against Amanda Lemos, she made a post talking about what happened, explaining herself. But this is the one time that when she pulls out, there's no explanation. And she's leaving me sitting with uncertainty of what the heck is going on. I don't. Aspinall or Magny? Or did he mean Ngannou? Oh, who I got, Magny or Prates? I think Prates should beat Neil Magny, but it's kind of worrisome though because Neil Magny is very underrated and he always wins whenever I least expect him to. And he hasn't lost 2 in a row since 2013. Every time he loses, he bounces back and he's good at derailing prospects. So I don't know. I want to pick Prates though. I could just see Carlos Prates just chopping down the legs of Neil Magny. Magny is very susceptible to low kicks with those chicken legs. Magny doesn't have the greatest boxing or boxing defense. Prates has nasty hands and a lot of power, but I don't know, man. Prates doesn't have the experience Magny does. Magny, I think, has a cardio advantage. He might even have a grappling advantage. We've seen Magny go 5 rounds, and it's a 5 round fight. So Magny, I could see him like weathering an early storm and then breaking Prates as the rounds go on. But I hope not, though. I do want Carlos Prates to win because he's a very interesting and scary prospect to have in the welterweight division. And I want to see Prates in bigger matchups after Neil Magny. Like, I was disappointed that they even went with the Neil Magny fight. Like I was hoping we would see Prates versus someone like MVP, not Neil Magny of all people. You know what I mean? I want to see Prates against another really good striker like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Could you imagine that fight? Or Prates versus Jeff Neal, Prates versus Michael Morales. But I get what the UFC's doing. They're trying to use the old vet Neil Magny as a stepping stone to slowly build Prates, in the rankings, but it's risky. And as far as Aspinall or Ngannou, who wins that fight? It's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough to say, and I don't want to let recency bias sway me because I've had this habit for years, and I'm not the only MMA fan who struggles with recency bias. Like every time I see a fighter get a big win, the narrative or my opinion on that fighter completely shifts, and then when they lose, I'm like, never mind, I was wrong about that fighter. Because I always thought Tom Aspinall had a really good chance against Francis Ngannou, but I don't know, man. I think Aspinall technically has an advantage with the boxing. I think he's slightly faster than Francis Ngannou. I think he has very good striking defense. I think where Aspinall is like the most vulnerable or where he's the most hittable is when he's offensive. When he's going forward and attacking is when he leaves himself open. That's where he leaves his chin in the air. But when he's the one on the defense on the feet, he's actually pretty slippery to hit. And then I could also see Aspinall having success with calf kicks, but then so could Ngannou. Ngannou's got nasty leg kicks, but then Aspinall has the grappling. Aspinall has very well timed and fast takedowns, and he's very dominant on the ground. And maybe he could out grapple Ngannou, but then again, Francis Ngannou is a big boy, very physically imposing, and very good takedown defense. I'm going to say Francis Ngannou probably wins that fight. He probably chins Tom Aspinall in the first round. But if anyone is sleeping Ngannou in MMA, it's Tom Aspinall. Because no one at heavyweight has the hand speed that Aspinall does, man. There's a lot of heavyweights who are powerful, but nobody at heavyweight right now has the speed and the power that Tom has. Gon has the speed, but he doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the pop like Aspinall does. But right now, I'm going to have to say Ngannou. But what's more interesting is Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. That's a fight I really want to see, and I'm so sad that fight got away, man. It's like there's forever going to be a debate between fan bases as to who's the best heavyweight in the world and who's better, but we're never going to actually get to see them fight each other. It's like back in the day when we had those Fedor versus Randy Couture debates, but the fight never happened because Fedor was dominating in other organizations, like in Pride, when Randy was dominating in the UFC. Like for years, we had so many debates on who's the best heavyweight. Randy or Fedor or Cain Velasquez, or Fedor or Brock Lesnar. And we never got to find out. And now we've kind of ran to a similar situation with this one because Dana White and Ngannou just could not come to terms. I like your videos. Thank you, Joshua Vasquez. Um, yeah, and that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, it's very possible that Tatiana never agreed to fight Jandy Roba. And sometimes the UFC will do this. They will book fights without the fighter known, without the fighter agreeing to a fight. That's why we've seen a couple of Paulo Costa fights get canceled, because Paulo Costa never agreed to fighting Ikram Aliskerov. They just put the fight together randomly just because, without Costa knowing. That's why Costa didn't show up to UFC 284 against Robert Whittaker, because he never agreed to the fight. Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall Sergey Pavlovich and Volkov never agreed to fighting each other. The UFC just booked it, and they had no choice but to fight each other. So maybe Tatiana could be pulling like a Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker, Aliskerov type situation here, which I don't think is a good idea if she's doing that. Because I mean, if she wants the title shot, and you agree to a fight. You can't just back out. So again, I'm hoping that my theory is correct. It could be a reach. I could be absolutely off. I could be absolutely wrong here. But I'm hoping and praying that what's really going on here is the reason why that fight is off is because Weili wants to fight soon, and there could have been a misunderstanding between Weili and the UFC, where the UFC thought Weili didn't want to fight anytime soon, but then they realized, oh shit, no, Weili actually does want to fight. We shouldn't have made Jandy Roba versus Tatiana, and maybe they were scrambling to find Weili an opponent. They couldn't find anyone at strawweight. Valentina wants to come back in March, and Weili probably wants to fight sooner. So maybe the UFC just chose to scrap Verna versus Tatiana to give Tatiana a title shot, but in doing so, they're probably like fabricating some kind of bullshit story that Tatiana got hurt or has health issues so that they can kind of smooth their way into doing what they're doing. They can smooth their way out of pulling Tatiana from the fight by saying that she was injured, but they can make up some story that, well, she just couldn't fight in December, but she could fight 1 month later, and maybe 1 month later perfectly aligns with Weili's comeback. And also note that UFC 311 is in Tatiana Suarez's home town in LA, home state in California. Okay, it's in Los Angeles, California. That's where Tatiana's from, Rancho Cucamonga, California. So maybe Tatiana might be fighting for the belt in LA in January. It's wishful thinking. I might be off. Maybe this is not going to end as well as I want it to. But I think the UFC could be doing something shady against Verna in favor of Tatiana. And they might do something like they're not going to delay the fight with Verna and Tatiana. They're just going to give Verna a replacement. They're going to give Tatiana the title shot 1 month later. And the winner of Verna versus whoever she fights gets a shot at the winner of Weili versus Tatiana. That could be the case. And that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, just do that fight. I agree. I agree. I mean, that fight always should have been the fight to make. I don't care. What makes Jack Della special? Insane toughness and heart. I was there for the Burns JDM fight in Miami. Yeah, what Jack Della Maddalena did to Gilbert Burns was diabolical, bro. I felt bad for Gilbert Burns. And I remember I picked JDM to win that fight, and I was so nervous watching the fight because Burns was winning that fight. I think he was like up 2-1 going into round three. And I'm like, I was so frustrated. I'm like, come on, Jack, you need to pull through, you need to pull something off. And then he hits Burns with that knee, and Burns is already gassed, stumbles over, and then gets destroyed by ground and pound. And that was a terrible stoppage. Like, that fight could have been stopped way sooner. Burns did not deserve that level of punishment. But now they're saying we might be seeing JDM versus Kamaru Usman at UFC 312. And Adesanya on the same card is in talks to fight Kyle Barajo. So we're going to see two of the Nigerian brothers share a card together. And what if they both lose, man? That would suck, man, because they're both at the tail end of their career. They both need wins really badly. So that would be sad, especially as like a fan of both. And as far as like who I think's gonna win between Izzy and Barajo and Usman JDM, I'm 50-50 on Usman Jack because I feel like Usman should win based off the fact that he's got the wrestling advantage and better wrestling than Burns. And Jack Della Maddalena doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. To be fair, he was injured in that Burns fight. And it's possible that with this time off, JDM could have improved his takedown defense. And Usman, he's up there in age, man. He's 36, 37 years old. I know Bilal's the same age, but Usman just has more miles on the clock, man. And I don't know, when Usman comes back, he just might be more diminished than his last fight. He has not fought. By the time he fights again in early 2025, that's going to be like a year and a half out of the game, dealing with multiple injuries. So we might see an improved JDM against a deterred aging Kamaru Usman, and JDM just might win. I fear that. I hope not. I want Usman to win. I need to see Usman get a dub. I don't know, man. And then as far as Adesanya Barajo, Israel Adesanya should win that fight, but I don't have faith in Adesanya anymore. He's allergic to wins at this point, so Kyle Barajo's probably going to sub him. It's amazing how different Max looks after all these fights. You can see the wars in Max's face. Yeah, Max Holloway has so much scar tissue. It's insane. And that's what kind of worries me about this fight with Topuria, because Topuria has so much power, and I'm a little bit worried about him knocking Max out, but I'm more worried about one of those big shots landing and opening up a big cut on Holloway. Especially like Holloway has like this scar um like in between his eyes from like the Dustin Poirier fight. And I thought that was the cut that Volk opened up. But apparently that scar tissue is from the Dustin fight. And I'm worried that that same cut's going to open up again and it's going to start to leak. And if Max Holloway, if he looks all bloody, that's not going to be a good visual for the judges because scoring these fights, it's damage based scoring. So even if Max Holloway is landing more, if Ilia Topuria's stunning Max, even if Max is out landing him, if Topuria is landing the harder shots and he's doing more damage, it doesn't matter how much more Max landed. Max will lose by decision. And my initial pick for this fight, every time I visualize this fight, I've always thought Topuria would probably beat him by decision and a split decision at that as well, because I could see it being such a close fight, like Ilya being tested, but being able to still pull through and win. Just because he's younger, he's got momentum, and so does Max. I mean, Max is improving every fight, but so is Topuria, and they always say you become 90% better when you become champ, right? And Topuria, like, he's high on confidence right now, as he should be, because he just slept the former pound-for-pound King Volkanovski. And you know what? Every time I switch my initial pick, I always end up wrong. I originally thought DEP would beat Izzy after UFC 297. And then I switched to Adesanya because I saw so many people going for Izzy. And I thought, you know what? Maybe Izzy could do it. And that's my boy. And I picked with my heart and I was wrong. I originally had Marab beating Sean, but then I got so nervous about O'Malley's striking and KO power. And I've seen clips of Marab getting, stunned in fights. And I thought, man, maybe O'Malley's going to crack his chin. I pick O'Malley like an idiot. I end up wrong. And then I also initially always had Pena against Raquel. Pena wins. So this could backfire. Me switching to Max could backfire. But I don't know, man. Once my predictions are out there on YouTube, I don't like going out there and then switching because then what if I end up right? Like, and you know what's funny? I actually thought of switching my prediction for Whitaker versus Adesanya too. I remember I was like, you know what? I might actually pick Robert Whitaker to win the rematch like on the day of, but I'm like, you know what? Nah, don't do it. And thank God I listened to my instincts because Israel Adesanya won that fight. Oh, and another time I did a prediction switch. I initially thought Shevchenko would beat Tyler Santos, and I picked Santos, and she loses. Close fight, but she loses. So that might be the DJC curse, guys. I don't know. I might be the new Lucas Tracy in terms of cursing fighters, because my predictions are not the greatest. They're very inconsistent. So whoever I pick, you should probably bet against them. Tatiana said she will fight and is not injured, so I'm believing her instead of sources. And she said she deleted tweets. She doesn't want to argue on the internet. Okay, that's interesting then. Where did she say that? MMA art? But if that's true, then I'm happy to know she didn't delete it because she's actually hurt. But there's a reason why she disputed it, though, Six McLovin. She disputed it because she knows it's BS. Like, How would you feel if you're a pro athlete and you're training and you know you're healthy, and then you see a bunch of posts all over the internet spreading rumors about you that aren't true, saying you're injured? You know your own body. Are you going to be like, are you not going to dispute those claims, those false claims against you? Like, come on. And I don't think Tatiana Suarez is pregnant either, because Tatiana Suarez really wants to be champion. And if she wants to be champion, now is not the time to have babies. And I mean, who knows? It's possible that um in one of her, I guess, bed sessions with Patchy, maybe the condom broke, maybe he didn't pull out, and maybe Tatiana doesn't want to get an abortion. Maybe it could be an accident. It's possible, but I don't know. I just feel like if that were the case, Tatiana might be more bold and upfront about it. Okay, even if the fight got canceled, what is the reason if Tatiana is healthy? The only reason for that is the UFC wants her to fight Wei Lee. And Dana said she's going to have a fight announcement soon. Exactly, bro. I feel like I'm cooking with this theory. Like, everyone's denying it and saying, no, there's no way. She doesn't deserve a title shot. She's not going to get a title shot. Bro, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. And the UFC, they're not known for integrity. Well, I mean, they're doing Tatiana justice in this situation, but the UFC, they're known for being fishy, suspicious, shady, all kinds of stuff. So again, it's very possible that the UFC, they're doing this because they're trying to get Tatiana an opponent, or sorry, Weili an opponent. Even if they're not going to give Weili a title shot, it could be work. My theory could work vice versa. Maybe they'll throw Verna Jandiroba in there against Weili as a sacrificial lamb, and I sure as hell hope not. But hey, it's possible they could be lying about her being injured so they could give Verna Jandiroba a title shot, which would suck. But again, Weili needs an opponent, and Weili might fight in January. Like, you can't not hear my theory and think, even if you don't agree with it, you can't not hear it and be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it does make sense, even if it's true or not. Exactly. And how would you be training and grappling when you're pregnant? Uh, you don't know that. Weili never said she's fighting in March. I know Valentina's fighting in March because she said that's when she wants to come back. Talk yo shit, DJ. Yo, what's up, Colostrum? But Six McLovin, don't think I forgot, bro. I know you're afraid that Tatiana is going to beat Wei Li, and that's why you don't want the fight to happen. That's why you're celebrating a potential downfall of Tatiana Suarez. That's why you're coming on my posts. That's why you're coming on my videos that are not related to Tatiana. You probably didn't even pay attention to my UFC 308 prediction video. You probably didn't even play the video. That's why you're coming on my post with these stupid laughing emojis. Because you're preying on Tatiana's downfall because you know she's a threat. As a Weili fan, you know she's a threat, and you don't want to see Zhang Weili get tested against a stylistic threat. And you're hoping that she's going to get off easy by fighting another one of these cans at strawweight. Nah, bro, it's not happening. Weili's not fighting Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina and Manon Fiorot are going to fight in March. St. Patrick's Day weekend, probably. And the main event's going to be, I'm going to predict it right now. UFC 313, the main event is going to be Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley 2, which is stupid. That fight shouldn't even be a consideration, but it's going to happen. And Shevchenko's going to co-headline to Merab again, and she's going to fight Manon Fiorot. And Weili Zhang, no matter when she fights again, it's going to be a strawweight title defense. Whether it's against Tatiana or somebody else, she's fighting again at strawweight. Trust me, I know. I don't see why the UFC would have to make up an injury, though. They've rescheduled fighters and changed matchups without injuries happening. Yeah, but again, I feel like if they would have just done this without fabricating some kind of injury story, I mean, again, it would still look suspicious, but I feel like fans would still complain. They'd be like, why did you shuffle the matchup? She should still have to go through Verna to get a title shot. Let me see. There's levels to this. Okay, I don't necessarily know what you mean by that, though, saying that there's levels to this. I know Verna canceled last fight, but Tati name was involved on that cancellation of the fight. I think saying that there's levels to this because Tatiana pulled out is just stupid. Because Verna Jandiroba has done nothing to show that she's done nothing to show that she's levels above Tatiana Suarez by losing to Carla, who Tatiana demolished, and losing to Dern and Rebus. So just because Tatiana Suarez, let's say she is injured. Let's say Tatiana is injured, the fight's off because she's injury prone and can't make fights consistently anymore. Verna Jandiroba ain't levels above her. Neither is Zhang Weili. I mean, you could argue Weili's on a different level from Tatiana, but that's doubtful. 3 fights canceled in 1 year. No. She only had 2 fights canceled this year, not 3. 2 fights this year were booked, and only 2 got canceled. And the canceled bout before that, like you said, Verna Jandiroba was the one who pulled out. It ain't Tatiana's fault. Verna once. She pulled out against Jandiroba once. And the cancellation with Jandiroba and Tatiana was last year. And Tatiana had nothing to do with it. And in 2023, Tatiana had 2 fights, 3 scheduled opponents, and one of her opponents pulled out on her. Tatiana had a 3-month camp for UFC Nashville. And she made it through those 3 months healthy and smoked Jessica Andrade and would have done the same to Verna Jandiroba if Verna showed up. But that's what I'm saying. Like, what is this guy talking about? What is this guy talking about? Guilt by association. So then wouldn't that make Verna Jandiroba guilty too because her name is involved? Like, what? That's dumb. That's terrible logic. You're only saying this because you don't like Tatiana Suarez and because you're biased against her. That's all. I mean, if I were you, I would want to see Whaley get tested and actually fight a real challenge. I wouldn't be hoping for one of my favorite fighters' biggest challenges to be injured and not able to fight. I would want one of my favorite fighters to prove they're the best. And I mean, you're calling me a Zhang Weili hater, but who says I'm a Zhang hater? The only times I've ever rooted against her was when she fought Rose Namajunas twice, and maybe Tisha Torres back in the day. I rooted for her when she fought Andrade. I was happy she won. I rooted for her when she fought Young Jacek. I was happy she won. Oh shoot! Hold on a second. Almost ended the stream by accident. I was happy she won that fight. Both fights against Joanna. I rooted for her hard against Esparza and Amanda Lemos. And I was happy that she fraud checked Amanda Lemos, bro. I was happy that she got rid of Carla Esparza. But what I'm not happy with, and the reason why I'm strongly critiquing Wei Li, is because of her inactivity. Because she fought in April, she has no need to take the rest of the year off. I mean, if she's going to fight again in January, that's fine. It's like, 9 months, whatever. But she has no reason to take a full year off while healthy. And that's why I'm criticizing her, because I want to see her fight twice a year, and I want to see her fight Tatiana Suarez. That was the fight I've been anticipating since late 2023, and I thought we would have seen this fight by now. That's where my frustration with Zhang Weili lies. It's not that I hate Zhang Weili, but I'm a Tatiana Suarez fan. I want Tatiana to have her opportunity to fight for the belt, and I want her to fight Weili. I want her to be able to fight the best, and add that win to her resume and prove she is the best. Like, if you followed my channel for like the last 4 years, from my old channel before it got terminated to this channel 2 years ago, you know I actually like Zhang Weili. I like her fight style. I think she's dope, but I just can't get behind the inactivity. I can't get behind that. And then people will try to counter me with, oh, but Suarez is inactive. Suarez never fights. But come on, Tatiana Suarez, the reason for her inactivity is different from Wei Li's. Wei Li's is by choice because she's choosing not to fight. Tatiana is trying to fight, but her body fails her. She deals with injuries, which sucks, but it's not because she's trying not to fight. She's trying to fight, and by the grace of God, she made 2 fights last year. Okay, unfortunate she pulled out twice this year, but it's not her fault. It's just not her fault. She's trying to fight. She wants to be active. She loves to fight. So you can't fault her for that. And she will fight again. I don't care what happens beyond the situation. Whether she fights for the belt ever or next, like, doesn't matter. If she could fight twice last year, she will fight again next year. It's gonna happen. She will be back in the octagon. It might not be as soon as I want. It might not be for the title, but she's gonna make a comeback. Trust me. And I can only hope that she can stay healthy and consistent. Because if she can be consistently healthy, none of these girls are touching her. Maybe Wei Li has a chance, but other than that, no one else is beating her. And these girls are very fortunate that Tatiana can't stay healthy. They're fortunate. They're fortunate that Wei Li or that Suarez had a neck injury in 2019. Like, could you imagine had she never got injured after beating Nina Ansaroff? She's beating Jessica Andrade for the title. Weili Zhang probably never becomes champion because she's not beating Suarez. Rose, I don't know. She could beat Tatiana because she's got the footwork to kind of keep Tatiana at bay from shooting takedowns, and she's got better takedown defense than Weili. And I think to beat Suarez, you need to actually have rangy striking and good footwork and good distance management, but she probably beats Rose too. Rose probably doesn't get the belt back. I say Joanna and Jacek would probably be her toughest stylistic matchup because, an active prime Joanna Has very solid takedown defense. It's hard to hold down. Great cardio, great volume. Like maybe Joanna might have been the one to beat her if she would have stayed active and motivated. But yeah, all these girls caught a break with Tatiana getting that neck injury, and then of course the knee injury. Whaley is a star with outside octagon obligations, fills something that non-superstars know about. So what? So what? Sean O'Malley, when he was the champion, was a superstar. He is a superstar with or without the belt. Sean O'Malley fought twice a year. He was an active champion. Did we see Sean O'Malley take the rest of 2024 off and say, I'm not going to fight Marab? And did Marab have to fight someone else in between that? No. Sean O'Malley's like, nah, I'm going to fight one of the riskiest style matchups for myself. 6 months later, okay, I'm going to put my belt on the line against Marab. And I respect him for that because he could have sat on the belt and continued to avoid Marab and milk his title reign. But no, he took the risk, didn't pay off, but he took the fight. And Zhang Weili could have done the same thing. Israel Adesanya, again, another good example. Another star. He was extremely active. He took a short notice camp at UFC 293 when he arguably could have took more time off to rest his body and recover, and he didn't. And he took the Sean Strickland fight. Yeah, he lost, but he took the risk. He stayed active, and even before losing to Pereira on his first reign, he was an active champion. He never thought, "Oh, I'm too much of a celebrity to be active." So that's no excuse. That's no excuse. Yeah, and O'Malley's not going to take a year off. He's going to get right back in the octagon. Even though he doesn't deserve a rematch, he's already been fighting more than Weili has recently. Conflict of scheduling, goofy. Well, they could have scheduled her for December. Problem solved, bro. Problem solved. Or January. And I'm not backtracking, bro. I'm not backtracking. I'm not one of Weili's biggest haters. If I was one of Weili's biggest haters, I would not have rooted for her at UFC 300, UFC 292, and UFC 281 and UFC 275. Literally, like I said, the only times I've rooted against her was 3 times, like two against the same person, Rose, and Tisha Torres. Like it's funny how people will confuse being brutally honest and being critical for hating a fighter. You can be critical of a fighter, harshly critical that is, and not hate the fighter. But I am frustrated with Zhang, and I have my reasons to be. Part of it is, yes, I am a Tatiana fan. Maybe if it was any other fighter in this situation, if there's no Tatiana in the picture, if she doesn't exist in some reality, in some universe where there's no Tatiana Suarez and Weili takes a year off and doesn't fight Verna or whoever in December, do you think I would care or complain as much? Probably not, but even so, I have no reason to complain because there's really no other interesting fights, in the strawweight division. But I know that Tatiana and Weili is the next biggest fight you can make at strawweight. It's stylistically intriguing. It's a fight where Weili's not guaranteed to win, and I want to see, biasly, I want to see Tatiana Suarez get her opportunity. So yeah. And trust me, I was hard. I was hard on Wei Li when she fought Rose those both times too, because again, at the time I was super pro Rose. And it's like not an abnormal thing to like go against the fighter in favor of your own. It doesn't really make you a hater. Do you think Tatiana's thyroid is bothering her? What could it be? I can't see why she can't get any better or can't get better to fight by December. Yeah, I hope it's not her thyroid, man. Like when they say health issues, I'm a little bit worried because it's like, bro, if it's not an injury, what health issues, bro? Like cancer resurfacing? I hope not, but that's always been kind of one of my biggest fears as a Tatiana fan is what if she gets cancer again? And what if she gets cancer before she gets the chance to fight for the title? Like that would be so sad. And I don't want to be negative here. I don't think that's the case. Okay? But that would just be so sad. It would be such a beautiful part of her story to see her go from overcoming cancer, overcoming all these injuries, and in the end, it leads to her winning the belt. Like, that's what I want for her as a fan. And okay, I know when No Filter MMA is live, there was like another theory. Like, did someone say it was like joint? It could be joint issues or something. Hold on. Um, yeah, but if you hear my theory, that's my only explanation as to why what's going on might be going on. But hopefully Tatiana Suarez, hopefully Tatiana can just make a statement. Please, Tatiana, spill the beans. Spill the freaking beans, man. Spill the beans, my girl. Because she's not helping by staying quiet. She's not helping by staying quiet. She needs to give us something. Hopefully, though, within the next week, we'll get to the bottom of it. Anyway, 4 more sleeps, guys, until UFC 308. We are so close. Yeah, she definitely would have been the first person to finish her. I totally agree. She probably would have submitted her. I think she would have beat her at her own game. And what sucks about this fight not happening is I feel like fans would have really respected Suarez after UFC 310. They'd be like, wow, we underrated her, we disrespected her, but she destroyed the girl who we highly regarded. So damn, she might actually have a chance to beat Whaley. And then they will no longer be able to say, well, she beat Montana and washed up Jessica. They would actually credit her for beating, a streaking contender in their prime before getting a title shot. And that might even sway the future odds for Whaley Suarez. Man, but I hope Max Holloway could pull this off in a few days. I'm nervous. I'm nervous as hell, bro. Because we know how dangerous Ilio Abtoro is, as Conor McGregor likes to call him. But I think if anyone is, I think if anyone's beating Topuria, it's going to be Max Holloway. because something in me tells me Topuria is not going to be a long reigning champion, and I don't see who other than Max Holloway would beat him at this point. I mean, maybe Diego Lopez, maybe Evloev could wrestle him to a boring decision, maybe, but I just feel like Max is the perfect style to be a kryptonite to Ilia Topuria because of his good chin, because of his rangy striking and his volume and his cardio and his experience. I feel like he has the tools to beat Ilia Topuria. And even though Topuria gets so many Volk comparisons, he's not Volkanovski at the end of the day. He's not Volkanovski. I think Volk just had the perfect style out of anyone to neutralize a prime Max Holloway at featherweight. I don't think Ilya has the style to shut down Max's game. He can beat Max, but if he beats him, it's going to be way closer than the third and first Volk fight was. Um, if he beats him by decision, I mean. Or he'll have to shut Max's lights out, which again, I don't know if that's happening. And if he doesn't knock out Max, it's going to be a really, really hard fight. It's going to be a really, really difficult fight against Holloway if he cannot KO him. And Holloway has shown, like, outside of Volk, he's the best featherweight. And he could show that this weekend. And that would be a huge capstone in his career to, like, go from being held down for years, playing second fiddle to Volk, to then finally regain the championship after 5 years. I mean, bro, if Carlos Esparza could become champ again after 8 years, imagine Holloway, man. He's 32 years old. He's still young. And I know people keep talking about the changing of the guard, but Holloway is not in the 35 club, bro. He's still young and he's still evolving. But then again, so is Topuria. And then Topuria kind of has more ways to win. But that's what makes this fight exciting, is just the mystery of anything could happen in this fight. And then Whitaker Shamaev is another big fight on this card that I'm like really excited for to see what happens. She's now entered the shoulda woulda coulda type fighter. Not yet. Not yet she didn't. Can Verna give Whaley problems on the ground? I think she could. I think she could give her problems on the ground, yes. But could she hold Whaley down and dominate her with her grappling the way I think Tatiana can? I mean, Whaley has terrible get-up ability, actually. So it's possible, but I don't. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that she might be able to take Zhang Whaley down, but Whaley Zhang will have better chances of getting back to her feet and imposing her striking against Verna Janiroba. And if Amanda Hebus could beat you up like that on the feet, imagine what Zhang Weili would do. Like, honestly, I feel like Weili would beat the brakes off of I feel like she'd beat the brakes off of Verna and school her. Like, the only thing beating Weili in that fight is herself. Like, if Weili slips on a banana peel in that fight or shows up on an off night, like, yeah, Verna Janiroba ain't winning that. I want to look up the Verna versus Rebus stats to see if Rebus was able to take her down and out grapple her. Well, she only got one takedown, I think. But I mean, she got outstruck, man. She got doubled on significant and total strikes, man. I mean, after dropping Rebus, that just woke something up in Rebus, and then Rebus just kicked her ass afterwards. Yeah, I don't think Verna's on that level. I feel like Verna gets very overrated. I think she's good, but I don't think she's on that level of a Weili. If Rose Namajunas was still in this division, Rose Namajunas night and day is better than Verna Janiroba. If Joanna was still here and in her prime, she's night and day better than Verna Janiroba. Like, she definitely is not going to be the toughest opponent that Weili will have ever faced. What's up, Toron Brown? Max gonna wax Taporia. Taporia got dropped by Herbert. He could wax Ilya Taporia, bro. Max Holloway is heavily slept on in this fight. It's crazy. It's like people forget who Max Holloway is and what he's done in this division. And it's crazy watching like all these MMA YouTubers go against Holloway. You got Lucas Tracy, MMA Guru, MMA Joey, Kenny Okoye counting out Max Holloway. It feels like me and Bedtime MMA are in the minority of people picking Max. And if this fight was booked any time before Topuria fought Volk, Max would be a favorite, and a lot of people would pick Holloway. And who knows? Maybe Topuria would win. It would be a massive surprise. But Max could end the win streak of Arnold Allen and turn back other rising contenders like Calvin Kattar when Kattar was at the top of his game. I don't want to say that means he'll have no problem with Topuria, but I just feel like Max can beat anyone in this division. And I feel like he just has what it takes to beat Topuria. And I'm not even going to be surprised if Holloway knocks him out, too. I feel like Holloway has more finishing potential than Topuria, which I know sounds insane, but I'm trusting Max Holloway's chin, okay? I'm trusting his chin. Max Holloway has sneaky power, and he could hurt Ilya Topuria. He could hurt an overzealous, overconfident Topuria who underestimates Holloway's power and overestimates his own ability to take Max's punches. Like, I don't think Topuria should brawl with Max Holloway. I know, like, on paper, brawling should favor him, but Max Holloway is a really good brawler, and he knows how to find the kill shot in a wild exchange. For a guy who's supposed to be pillow-fisted, when you force Max to bite down on the mouthpiece and you start swinging back and forth with Holloway, he finds the kill shot. Look at him against Gaethje and TKZ. I know TKZ was old and washed, but he went from knocking out a deterred TKZ, but then he knocked out Gaethje, who's known for a granite chin. So that just kind of proves that he didn't just KO TKZ because TKZ was old and chinny. He knocked out Zombie because he has underrated power, and he could knock out Topuria, especially if he's able to time a good head kick. I could see him finishing Topuria. Like, I will not be surprised if Holloway gets a head kick finish. Rick Allen, women's MMA should be banned. There's no need for it. Women's MMA has been regressing and it isn't entertaining. I agree. Women's MMA kind of has been letting me down. I'm not gonna lie. It's been frustrating. Like, if Tatiana is like, if she's injured and done, I don't really have interest in women's strawweight. I mean, Whaley, outside of Tatiana, is the only interesting fighter in that weight class. The rest are bums. Women's bantamweight isn't that good, with the exception of Pena and Harrison. Um, but Aldana will never be champion because she's not good enough, and that's a letdown for me. I already know Pena's not going to last as champ again. And Grasso couldn't keep the belt, and now we're stuck with Valentina. And I just want to see something new, man. I just want to move on to a new era. And Valentina's the champ again. She's probably going to stay that way for another 2 years, which is going to kind of suck. And it's not because I hate Valentina Shevchenko. It's just I'm ready for new blood to take over the division. Like, that's why I wish Grasso would have just got the split decision in the second fight, because if she would have won by split decision, okay, so what if she loses her next fight to Aaron or Manon? At least she loses to a fresh opponent, and the belt is passing from new fighter to new fighter, from Grasso to the next gen. You know what I mean? It just makes the division more interesting. And that's why it sucked when Amanda Nunes regained the title from Pena. Because when Pena was champion, there was so many interesting matchups on the table. And anyone could have been champion by that point. But then Nunes came back, it's like, yeah, no one's getting that belt till she's gone. I hope Val loses soon, man. I hope Mana Furo beats her. Partially because I want Grasso to get avenged, and I just want to see a new champion. I just want a new champion, bro. It's like, if we can move on into a new era in men's MMA, why can't we in women's MMA too? Is it because women's MMA is that shit that these new fighters who get upset wins, they're just that bad to where they just can't prove it wasn't a fluke? Like, I don't get it. Yeah, I hope Wang Kong wins her next fight. Who's she fighting again? Like, I hope Wang Kong successfully makes it up the division and can get that fight with Val. Like, if Val can remain the champion and Wang Kong is in the top 5, the UFC needs to capitalize on that matchup. That would be a huge fight to make in the women's flyweight division. Because Wang Kong is like Valentina Shevchenko's Poatan to her Izzy. Because like Adesanya Pereira, I mean, Pereira retired Izzy from kickboxing, was the last guy to beat him in kickboxing, and falls into the UFC, makes it to a title shot, beats him again. Similar storyline here. Wang Kong retires Valentina from kickboxing, and then immediately after, Valentina makes her UFC debut. And then we can see something similar. Wang Kong follows Val into the UFC. And then what if she beats her for the title? That would be crazy. It probably will be. It probably will be. I mean, Furo has a chance to make the fight exciting because I do feel like Manon Furo is going to pressure Valentina Shevchenko more than anyone else. Like, I feel like she's going to be more confident engaging Valentina on the feet. Like, she won't be afraid of her striking because we've already seen Alexa Grasso be competitive with her on the feet, touch her up, and I'm sure Manon's thinking, if Grasso could do this, so can I. And unlike Alexa Grasso, I feel like Manon has multi-dimensional striking. It's not just her boxing. She has very solid kicks as well that could match Valentina to make it interesting. And same with Natalia Silva if she could get the Val fight. Wang Kong's going to let the flyweight division. I sure hope so, but I hope that it's not going to be one of those things where, like, she just can't deal with anyone who has any level of grappling. That would be disappointing. Yeah, I'm not that excited either. This is why it's so bad that Val got the belt back. Like, honestly, the UFC was better off not making the trilogy. I understand they made it because the second one was a draw, but I think the UFC should have honestly moved on. They should have. They should have just given the winner of Manon, Aaron the title shot, and Valentina Shevchenko should have moved up to bantamweight again and fought for the belt. But then again, Pena wouldn't have been champ again. So I don't know. They could have found something for Valentina. Like, they maybe could have still given her a title shot, but maybe they shouldn't have given her a title shot right away. They should have let Grasso fight Wei Li at UFC 300, and then they could have just given Valentina the winner in September. That would have been way smarter. Because then you give Grasso a chance to further build herself up as a champion, build up her confidence by defending her belt against someone else, and then that could have made the Val trilogy more interesting, and then it would have been less bad if Grasso could have lost to Valentina in the third fight. And then what if Wei Li would have beat Grasso at 300? Then you got the option of doing Wei Li versus Valentina later on this year. There's so many different things the UFC could have done here. And I feel like they messed up by making that trilogy. But that's the tricky thing, though. When you have these dominant champions, you owe them a rematch. You got to give them that rematch. But you know what? We almost got away from a Grasso-Shevchenko 2 fight because the UFC did offer Erin Blanchfield Valentina, and Erin declined it when I think she could have won that fight. She could have won that fight, and Grasso could have been fighting somebody else. But at the end of the day, Maybe she respectfully declined it because Val was deserving of an immediate rematch. I don't know. We need more non-Pena trash talkers in women's MMA. Why? Natalia has cardio problems. I agree. Like a lot of people hype up Natalia Silva, but I noticed in that fight with Jessica Andrade, she was slowing down by a lot in that third round. And if that was a 5-round fight, who knows, man? Jessica might have been able to turn things around and swing the momentum late. And, if she fights for the title, I hope that her cardio is going to be improved and her pacing. And who knows? Maybe she gassed out against Jessica because when you're fighting Andrade, she's constantly pressuring you, and you're constantly having to move backwards to avoid those big hooks of Jessica. But maybe against Val, it would be different because Valentina doesn't pressure like Jessica. She fights at range, so maybe Natalia might be able to conserve her energy better. So maybe her cardio won't be a factor against Val, but still, it's something to keep an eye out for. Wang Kong can talk that smack. She's talked trash before. When? Also, who do you guys got winning between Robert Whitaker and Khamzat Chimaev? I'm picking Khamzat, but I'm worried for that pick. I'm worried for my Max and Khamzat predictions, bro. Like, I feel like Ilya and Robert are probably actually going to win, and I probably messed up by picking against them. I don't know, man. What I do know about Saturday night is one of the undefeated fighters are losing between Khamzat and um Ilya. I don't see them going 2-0 that night. I feel like we're going to see one of the beloved fan fave fighters win on Saturday, and we're going to see one of these undefeated fighters get derailed, whether it be Chimaev or whether it be Ilya Taporia. The difference is that Val is a good wrestler and grappler, unlike Izzy. So Val will beat Wang Kong in MMA 100%. I mean, that's true. I mean, Gross or Valentina better developed her offensive wrestling game for MMA than Adesanya. Adesanya, before fighting Poatan in MMA, never learned how to wrestle offensively. He's only worked on takedown defense because he's the striker who everyone's going to try to take down. But then when he finally fought a striker who was on his level and had a power threat, Adesanya turned into a wrestler, but he wasn't able to take Pereira down as often as he wanted to, apart from round 3, because he didn't have the level of wrestling experience that he needed to take down someone like Pereira. Whereas Valentina Shevchenko does have that wrestling offense experience. So we could see her mix up the martial arts and just control Wang Kong on the ground and probably GSP her to a decision. Or maybe even a ground and pound finish or sub. Boris and Max for the win. Yeah, that's my pick. I think Khamzat's going to win because I just feel like he's going to stop Whitaker before Whitaker has a chance to show anything. If the fight goes into round 2 and then it goes past that, Whitaker's winning the fight 100%. But I'm just going based off my gut. I just have a feeling that Robert Whitaker is going to fold to Khamzat Chimaev the same way he did to Dricus du Plessis. But I could be wrong, though, because Robert is so prepared. He looks so prepared for this fight. He's had 2 camps for Khamzat Chimaev. And ever since Robert Whitaker lost to DDP, a switch just flipped in Robert Whitaker where he fights meaner in his fights. And we did see he was able to stop Ikram Aliskerov in his last fight. So we'll see. Whitaker is the Aussie version of Chris Weidman. I don't know about that. I think Whitaker is way better than Chris Weidman all time. And just a better fighter in general. Because when Chris Weidman lost the belt, he went on a losing streak and went like 1-4 in his next 5 fights, or like 1-5 in his next 6 fights, I believe. Whereas Robert Whitaker, when he lost the belt, he went on like a 3-fight winning streak and then had an extremely close fight with Israel Adesanya, which is exactly why I almost switched my pick. Because I saw ways Whitaker could actually beat Izzy in the rematch, but I just felt no, he'll make it closer, but it's not going to be enough. But then what happened after that? He beat the shit out of Marvin Vettori after losing to Izzy. And then he loses to DDP. He wins 2 more fights after that. So Whitaker hasn't shown any decline in between losses. He always bounces back and comes back better. Whereas Weidman, it's like when he lost his belt, he was done. And it took Weidman like 3 years to finally get another win, and then he loses 2 more after that, and then it takes him another 3 years to win, and then he loses again after that via injury, then loses again, and then finally gets his first win in like 4 wins. Like Weidman literally has won twice in 9 years, or 3 times in 9 years, which is kind of sad. Whitaker in like the last 9 years has won like I think 12 or 14 times because he had that 9-fight win streak after Wonder Boy. Um, and then he won like 4 fights in between the Izzy losses, and then 2 fights after DDP. So, yeah, I think it's been like 14 fights he's won in the last 9 years. So he's done more than Chris Weidman. So they're not the same. Oh, as in hype. Okay. And maybe because both are chinny. Damn, everyone's writing off Holloway. Some dude named Left Lane MMA said he's cooked. I saw that video, bro, and people act like Holloway just didn't beat Gaethje. Now all of a sudden he's over the hill and Ilya's gonna destroy him. It's dumb, man. It's dumb. Like that Gaethje performance, if that showed me anything that shows Max Holloway, is not to be counted out. He's not to be counted out against anyone. And people can say what they want about Topuria being a better boxer than Gaethje and a better fighter. Maybe he is. We don't know that. But Gaethje was the most dangerous opponent you could have threw at Max. Because Gaethje had one-shot knockout power, dangerous low kicks. We've seen Holloway take damage against Volk and Arnold Allen in a year. And it was very possible that Gaethje could have messed him up the same way he did Tony Ferguson. And Max defied odds and completely dominated the fight. So I have no doubts in my mind he could beat Ilia Topuria. Yeah, he could. He could get a 4th-round TKO. It's very possible. I could see a scenario where like Max Holloway is up 2 rounds to 1 and Ilia Topuria starts to slow down because even though he showed good cardio against Emmett, he had good cardio because he was the hammer. And it's easy to have good cardio when you're the hammer. When you're the nail, that's when your cardio really gets put to the test. And Max Holloway is really good at driving the stamina right out of you. So we might see Topuria tire out based off the fact that he's hitting Max with everything. Max won't go away. Max keeps pressuring like he did against Jose Aldo. And we might see Holloway draw out a lot of misses from Topuria. Because Max does have underrated defense and he's good at sliding out of the way just enough to not take the full blunt force of the punches. So we might see Topuria gas by round 4. And then we might see them swing for the fences at each other. Holloway might point to the center. And then out of nowhere, I could see Topuria getting timed with a perfect head kick and going out. Because he's so tired. And when you're tired, it makes you lazy with your defense. It makes you more susceptible to getting chinned. So, yeah, I won't be shocked if Topuria gets knocked out in round 4. He could get knocked out early, but yeah, I could see a late finish for Holloway in this fight. In my main card prediction video, which I might leave a link in the comment section, like after I'm saving this live, after it's done, I picked Holloway by decision because when I was thinking about the fight, I'm like, is he really gonna finish Topuria? What if Topuria survives? But I could see a finish, man. I could, especially if Max is able to press Topuria on the back foot for the most part of the fight. Like when you're on your heels and moving backwards, especially for a tank like Topuria, that's gotta be exhausting. And you're fighting a durable guy with a good chin who doesn't go away with so much volume. Like, we might see Topuria gas out. I will not be surprised. Valentina is beating Manon. Yeah, I agree. Probably by decision. Ankalaev and Rakic will be a good fight too. I hope so, but I mean, that fight has like all the recipes to be boring. Hold on, I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I'm back. I just had to take a quick leak. Where were we? So we were talking Holloway to Poria. Okay. I wonder why Alex Volk thinks he deserves the winner of Holloway. And he needs to get a W. That's because he's the GOAT of featherweight. And when you're a long range champion, immediate rematches, immediate title shots, they are warranted. And the only reason why Volkanovski is not fighting Topuria this weekend is because before getting slept by Ilya, he got slept by Volk and he was overly active. And I think the UFC, they're shelving Volk for his own good because he needs that rest for his brain. So that's why if Volkanovski never took the Islam Makhachev fight and if let's say there was no Islam fight in between the Yair and Taporia fight, and Volk got knocked out coming off the Yair win, I think Volk gets the rematch. Like he deserves a title shot. But I do agree with you in the sense that he probably shouldn't take a title fight, but it doesn't matter whether he gets a title shot or not. Unless he fights Dan Ige, there are no easy or safe fights for Volkanovski going forward in the top of the division. It's either fight for the belt against Max or Topuria, or fight Diego Lopez and get knocked out again or submitted. I mean, maybe he could rematch Yair, but I don't see a need to make that rematch. And then there's Evloev. At this point, I think Mosvar would be a tough fight for Volkanovski. Like the only guys right now in the top of the division who I think Volkanovski would be guaranteed to win against would probably be against Ortega again, because Ortega's mid, and Yair, because Yair's one-dimensional and can't stop takedowns. He could probably beat Arnold Allen, but Emmett's risky. I'd say he could beat Sterling, and then anyone outside the top 10, but within this top 5, man, like, yeah. So Volk he's better off just taking a title shot. Because what happens if he goes backwards and fights someone else and loses? It's better he loses again in an automatic attempt to get the belt back. Because it would feel so criminal and unfair for Volk to not get an immediate rematch or an automatic title shot. Because, I mean, look at Jose Aldo. He got knocked out by McGregor when he was champion for like 4 years. He never got an immediate rematch, but at least he got an interim title fight afterwards and then was promoted to undisputed when Conor vacated the belt. So Volk, he either has to fight for an interim title or he's got to fight for the belt. Taporia is winning. Y'all forgot what he did to Volk? No, I ain't forgot, bro. I ain't forgot. I know it's a dangerous fight. It's a dangerous fight for Max. I'm acknowledging that, bro. I could see it. But I just don't think he's sleeping Max. I think if he wins, it's going to be a decision. But I mean, hey, if Taporia knocks out Max Holloway, that's going to be insane, bro. That's going to be crazy. I feel like that's going to break the internet because Max has never been KO'd before. And I think the entire fan base is going to be shook. Or if he drops and subs Max, or just takes him down and subs him, again, that'll be crazy because Max has not been submitted in years and he's never been knocked out before. So we could see something crazy happen this weekend, like a Taporia knockout, but I'm not banking on it. And I'm just going with Taporia because, Max, because styles make fights. And MMA math don't always math. Valentina dominated Grasso in the grappling in the rematch. That never happened. That was AI. That was CGI. And AI is getting too good, man. They're getting scary with their special effects, you know? Nah, I'm kidding. Yeah, unfortunately that happens. I wish it didn't happen. That was a nightmare. Let's see. She should have kept it like she did the whole round 3. What do you mean? Because she kept it like that every single round. She just kept taking her down the entire fight. Didn't even give Grasso a chance. But I mean, it didn't matter. Like, Grasso was losing that fight no matter what. Because in that second fight, her biggest strength, which was her boxing, which was supposed to be one of her biggest advantages against Val, didn't shine that much. I mean, outside of dropping Shevchenko was piecing her up in round 1. Grasso was like landing a few jabs, but Valentina was out striking her and then took her down, and then she got dropped in the second round when she tried to brawl with Grasso like an idiot. But then when she fixed that mistake and just stayed out of range and kept it at kicking range, all throughout that second fight, she was getting the better of the striking, as well as the grappling, kind of. But Grasso was able to out-grapple her towards the end a little bit. But yeah, going into the trilogy, it's like Grasso didn't have the boxing advantage like the first fight because Val adjusted to the boxing. And then in 2 fights, it didn't matter. Grasso still could not fix her weakness and takedown defense by the time they had the third fight. So you combine that. Valentina's adapted to the boxing and has control of the striking, and she's already so much better than Grasso on the ground. So I should have seen that coming when predicting that trilogy, but I'm just so biased in favor of Grasso. I just didn't want to pick against her. But yeah, even if Valentina didn't wrestle, like, again, Grasso wasn't gonna win because before the takedown of round 1, she was getting outstruck. She was missing her punches. Valentina kept pull countering her and landing that check hook, but she wrestled Grasso because she knew that was the easiest path to victory. She took her down easily in both fights, so she thought, why risk standing up? Let me just wrestle. And just completely like shut her down every single round with the wrestling. Because if it stayed standing, it would have given Grasso a chance. But even then, I still think Val would have won. And I mean, I wouldn't even have been surprised if she would have knocked Grasso out too, or at least dropped her with the rate she was hitting her with that check hook. I don't want to see Holloway Volk 4 or Ilya versus Volk 2. I'm with you on that, bro. I don't want to see those either, but what's fair is fair. And Volk, you cannot deny he's deserving. Like, I don't want to see Volk Max 4 for the simple fact that Volk beat Max 3 times. I don't want to risk Max losing again to Volk. Though it would be interesting if Max could get him this time, but then if Ilya wins, I don't want to see it because I know Ilya will sleep him again and it will be sad for Volk fans, but I feel like it just has to be done. Topuria Islam would actually be kind of interesting. Because Ilya's short, stocky, could take down the fence, a lot of power, really good boxing. And I mean, if Volkanovski's able to clip Islam and hurt him like that, I could imagine Topuria hurting Makhachev, but much worse. But Topuria has to fix his weakness with head kicks. Because if he does not address that, if Max doesn't capitalize on that, Islam Makhachev will. And if Makhachev hurts him with a head kick, he's not Jai Herbert. He's finishing the job. And honestly, there's so many openings for Topuria or for Islam to catch Ilya with down the middle, up the center shots because Ilya has a low stance. He fights with his head very low. So there's openings for Islam to land knees up the middle, and Islam has really good knees. Like, he caught Volkanovski with knees several freaking times in both fights, but particularly in that first fight. Every time Volk would duck his head down, Makhachev would knee him in the head. Makhachev also has a very good Thai clinch. He's good at landing knees from the Muay Thai plum. So I could see him kind of damaging Topuria with knees if he doesn't catch him with a head kick. So I feel like there's kind of a lot that Topuria would need to adjust in his style to beat Makhachev. I'm not saying it's not interesting, but with the glaring holes in Topuria's game and the fact that Makhachev fought Volkanovski twice, he's got experience against another short, stocky, powerful man. I feel like he'll be more prepared to deal with the style of Topuria. Topuria can knock him out cold. He can, but I think Topuria could get knocked out by Makhachev as well because we've seen Topuria get dropped by Herbert. And like I said, man, I don't think Topuria is going to be undefeated for long. I don't know why. Either he's going to lose to Max, or whenever he does lose soon, it's going to be when he fights in the lightweight division, like Volk. But I'm going to say Topuria has a fight or two until he gets his first loss. I just feel like it's inevitable. And it's not because I'm saying Topuria is overrated. Topuria is very good. I just feel like, I don't know. He doesn't strike me as the dominant champion type. Or the world-beating type either. I think Max can beat him. I think Diego Lopez could pose problems to him. And up a division, I think Makhachev would be a very dangerous fight for him. I think if Arman Sarukian beats Islam, that's a tough fight for Ilya Topuria because he could exploit the wrestling of Ilya and test him in that department. There's so many tough fights for Topuria up a weight class. That's dumb. So just because Ilya knocked out Volk means he'll KO Holloway, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. MMA math does not always math. Volkanovski was always chinny. Volkanovski was always chinny, and it does not help that he was coming off a knockout loss to Islam and didn't take time off. Max Holloway, on the other hand, has always been known to have a granite chin, and he's fought so many power punchers throughout his career, and not a single one of them dropped him except for Poirier. But the fence kind of saved Max and then Gaethje in the fourth round, so I can't forget that happened. But we never see Holloway get dropped. And I just don't know if Topuria is finishing him. He could outpoint Max, but knocking him out, that's a tall task. Like, I'm not going to believe Max gets KO'd until I actually see it happen. Yeah, I'm telling the truth, bro. I'm telling the truth. Because we already saw what happened in the trilogy. My girl unfortunately got schooled, so. And based off what we saw in the second fight with Val and Grasso, that should have been a clear indicator to me that Grasso was losing the trilogy. But the reason why I picked Alexa, because I thought, okay, she has the advantage of youth. She's the younger fighter. She's going to improve. I know Val improved, but I'm like, come on, Grasso can make adjustments too, right? But I guess not. I don't know how she couldn't adjust. I mean, maybe it's possible Grasso could have got overconfident from those first two fights, feeling like she already beat, Val twice, and maybe in preparation she was slacking off. Whereas Valentina Shevchenko, she was dedicated in this camp and she was determined. She was determined to get that one back. And and Valentina had a redemption arc to complete. Like, she had a redemption story to complete. And when she had her mind set on redemption, she was not to be denied there. And that's why I was so mad when it was a draw, because I'm like, no, they're going to do a third fight, and what if Grasso loses? And it happened. So, yeah, it is what it is. I think people glaze Ilya a little too much. At the end of the day, Holloway has a way more impressive resume. Facts. Now, Topuria could build up a good resume. If he beats Max Holloway, you can't deny him. Like, beating Volk and Holloway in a single calendar year, that already says enough. Like, imagine being the only guy to beat both Volkanovski and Holloway. That's huge. It's like when DDP beat Whitaker and Adesanya. Those are good wins. And if he beats Max Holloway, then I think he'll win his next fight. He'll beat Volk twice. And then maybe he'll move up. I mean, maybe he'll fight Diego, I hope. But I feel like after he beats Volk again, if he beats Max, he's going to go to the lightweight division. And if he beats Makhachev or Arman Tsarukyan, whoever wins that fight, that's going to be insane. Like, Topuria could definitely prove himself to be a pound-for-pound great. And he's got potential. But I just have a feeling that his rise, somewhere in there, is going to get halted. If Max doesn't do it, then he's going to lose to whoever's the lightweight champ between Tsarukyan and Islam. Especially if it's Islam Makhachev. That's a tricky matchup for Topuria because Islam is very well rounded. He's got very good striking with deceptive knockout power. And combine that, he's got great defense on the feet. He's not going to be easy to hit. And he's got very strong grappling, dominant grappling. And Ilia Topuria did get taken down and controlled by Bryce Mitchell. And I'm just saying, if Bryce Mitchell can touch you up with jabs and kicks and get you down, imagine Islam Makhachev. Max gets hit a lot into Topuria has KO power in wrestling. Literally everywhere y'all gonna see. And I'm not doubting Topuria though. I'm not doubting Topuria by any means. Like, I could see this fight going like DDP versus Adesanya, but without the finish. Where, in this situation, Ilyich Dricus du Plessis, the well-rounded, powerful fighter with power on the feet, and really good grappling. And he might catch Max in weird positions. Like, he might be struggling on the feet a bit, but he might stay in there. He might be able to hurt Max and then take him down, but I just don't know if he finishes him, that's all. I favor Ilya, but Max has a good shot. He does, and that's what makes this fight so exciting. Because of how good Max's chances are, because Topuria is so good, but he's also never fought someone like Max. That's what makes this fight so hype. Max has good. He does have good distance control. He does. Um, Lopez is cool, but not all that. Nah, Lopez is a beast. I just think his only problem, the only thing about Diego that I worry about is just his cardio. But he did win the third round against Brian, like on a full camp, where he's not changing weight last minute. He had a better third round against Ortega than he did against Dan Ige. So I'm just saying, if Diego Lopez can manage his pacing and his gas tank going forward in the future, he's gonna be a problem for everyone in the featherweight division. I'm telling you, Lopez is a tank. Great chin, fast, powerful hands, and dangerous Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna laugh hard once Holloway proves everyone wrong again. And you know what? I like that we're all split on this outcome. That's what these lives are all about, man. I'm all for these debates and disagreements. That's what makes it fun. And what else makes it fun is that at the end of the day, we're gonna get to find out when it unfolds. And one of us are gonna have to eat our words. One of us are gonna have to take the embarrassment of being wrong. Ilya could be him. He still has a lot to prove. Exactly. And I think Max Holloway is the final boss fight for Topuria. He's the final boss. Because Max Holloway, outside of Volk, was considered that guy for so many years. And if Topuria can beat him as well, there are no more doubts or questions about Ilya Topuria, I'd say. And if Ilya Topuria can be double champ, again, all our questions about Topuria are answered. But man, becoming champ as a featherweight champ is hard. Like only Conor McGregor was able to win 2 belts as a former featherweight champion. Aldo couldn't do it at bantamweight. Volkanovski couldn't do it at lightweight on 2 attempts. Max couldn't do it when he had an interim title shot. So we'll see if Topuria can do it in the future when he does attempt it. And like MMA Art says, Topuria does have that power. And up a weight class, he is going to hit harder. So maybe he could chin Makhachev or Armin Sarukian. Could happen. He honestly, though, he might have better odds than Holloway and Volk did at becoming double champ. Because of that power alone. Like, he could change the outcome of a fight with a single punch. I don't know, man. Vulcan and Topuria are different in how they strike and how they move. Volkanovski is better fighting off the back foot. Volkanovski's better at breaking rhythm. Volkanovski constantly moves side to side, switches stances. It's hard to get a read on him and to really do anything to him on the feet. And why Topuria was able to beat Volk is because Volk lost his short advantage. He finally fought someone just as short as him, where they didn't have to awkwardly punch down at him, and you combine that with Topuria's one-shot knockout power in boxing. So he had the height, the power, and the boxing to get on the inside against Volk and catch him. And Max Holloway, unfortunately for him, he didn't have the power Topuria did, and he's taller than Volk with a reach disadvantage, which made things awkward. But Topuria does not have that reach advantage like Volk did. And I just don't think he has that style like Volk to just completely have an answer and counter for everything Max does. You know what I mean? That's why I think if it goes to a decision, it's going to be a very competitive, close fight. Like I could see, like either Ilya's going to knock him out, but I don't think he's just going to completely outclass him the entire fight. Which I mean, it could happen, but I don't see it. Max, a different man after he got married. Like he's got an extra life boost when it comes to him fighting in the octagon. Bro, Max always been good. He just lost to Volk. Max wins based off experience. I'm not saying he's not good, but Topuria just is much better. Y'all will see. Yeah, we will see. We will see. And that's why I'm excited. Not sure why people are saying Ilya is much better than Holloway standing. Ilya was getting clipped by Bryce Mitchell. Not really clipped, but Bryce was landing on him. That's true. Volk was landing on him in that second round. And I think if these guys could have that striking success against Topuria, Max Holloway can and he will as well. I do see Max piecing up Topuria in moments. Not saying that means he's going to win, but I do think Ilya is going to struggle on the feet with Holloway. But I mean, if Topuria does win, like I said, I could see a scenario where he's like losing a round, and then out of nowhere he steals the round by catching Holloway like at the very end, rocks him, but Max survives, and then maybe he just starts to out damage him. Like maybe Max, after getting hurt, fights differently, fights more cautiously, and then Topuria starts to take control of the center of the octagon and kind of leads the dance, chops the legs. Something like that could maybe happen. But I do think Topuria is going to have some adversity in this fight against Holloway, win or lose. Like, there's no way this fight's not going to be competitive either way. It's a very high level matchup between two high level fighters. I believe he beats Islam. That's why I'm hoping that fight is next. Volk was winning every sec till he wasn't. I don't know if he was winning every second, but he was definitely winning round two. Like, round one was close. A feeling out process. Ilya was out leg kicking him, but was being outlanded. But you could argue that's the Ilya round. But round two is when Volk was really looking good. Like he was looking sharp, but Topuria showed that composure and he was able to cut off the cage, slip on the inside of Volk's jab, and land a dangerous combination against the fence to put him out. Topuria was able to land that vintage Topuria combination that he knocked Mitchell out with, or not Mitchell, he knocked out who did he knock out with that? Oh, what's that guy's name? Jai Herbert. And then who was that guy that he fought in 2020? Let me look up Topuria fight in 2020. There was this one guy where he knocked out against the cage with a body shot, left hook to the body, right overhand combo. It was Damon Jackson, yes. Volk fell victim to the combo that Topuria caught Damon Jackson and Jai Herbert with. Like, Topuria's power is insane. Like, Topuria, like, he might be the second hardest hitting guy in the featherweight division. The reason why I say second is because Josh Emmett exists, and I think Emmett might actually hit harder than Ilya. But yeah, the problem is if Topuria is getting outstruck in this fight, is he going to be able to change the momentum of this fight with his power? It could happen, but is he knocking out Max? And if he doesn't knock out Holloway and he's getting outstruck, how will he turn the fight around? I don't think it's going to be as simple as, okay, I'll just take him down because Max has great takedown defense. Holloway fought Ricardo Lamas and completely stifled all of his takedowns. I think Alexander Volkanovski is a way better wrestler than Ilia Topuria. And Volk was able to get like a few takedowns in the second fight, but in both fights, Max defended every takedown in the first fight and was getting up every time Volkanovski was able to take him down in the second fight. So I don't think the grappling is going to be Ilya's path to victory in this fight. Mixing it up will help, but I don't think he's going to straight up win by out grappling Max. It's going to be by outboxing him and out damaging him. And maybe sleeping him. But it's not going to be with his grappling alone. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah, he finished those fights where he was getting touched, but there is room for concern that he was getting touched in those fights. Like that, I think it does matter. Especially when you put him up against Holloway, who has the chin that he does. What if he's not able to knock out Holloway? And he's getting pieced up. And the same thing happens let's say he gets outstruck in round 1. Can't find the chin in round 1. Tries to, I don't know, land something in round 2. Or maybe he does, but it doesn't have an effect. Then what? What happens if he's hitting Max with his best shots and Max is still there and still fresh? And still putting hands on him? Then what? Holloway gonna get Ilya tired like Alex did with the Roundtree. I could see it. I could see it. Well, I did give my prediction video for the fights, but yeah, I have I have Boris winning against Robert. But I'm not confident though. I'm extremely worried about that fight. Like, I want Khamzat to win because I want new blood at the top of the division. I don't want to see Whitaker versus DDP 2 because I just don't see the outcome being any different. Because even though Robert Whitaker technically is better than Dricus, he's chinny. He doesn't have finishing ability like that. And DDP is extremely durable. And he's not going to respect Robert Whitaker's striking. And within 5 rounds, if he could eventually start putting hands on Adesanya and rocking him, who Adesanya is a better striker than Whitaker with better defense and a better chin, I can only imagine he's going to start cracking Whitaker again. And he's going to find a finish again. Whereas with Chimaev, he poses an interesting threat to DDP. He might be the only guy in this division who can out-wrestle Dricus du Plessis. And I should have mentioned in my prediction video yesterday that when Max gets Ilya on the back foot, it might get Ilia Topuria tired. And then that could lead to a Max finish. Yeah, that's the problem. You know what? I might switch my pick to Robert Whitaker. I don't know. Robert, I think in reality, is going to win this fight. But if Khamzat does win, I'm going to say I called it. Like, if Khamzat Chimaev does submit Robert Whitaker within the first round, I'm going to say I called it. Because I do see that happening. We saw Dricus du Plessis have Whitaker in some dangerous positions on the ground with threatening the Darce, or even when Robert shot a takedown, Dricus almost guillotined him. And I think Khamzat has a way better submission game than DDP and way better ground control. And Yoel Romero was able to get Robert Whitaker's back. And I think if Khamzat gets to the back of Robert, he's going to do more with that position. And there's more of a finishing threat for Khamzat, if he gets to Whitaker's back, than someone like Romero. It would be wild. It would be crazy. What do we all think of Francis Ngannou's return, eh? That was insane. And I'm glad I picked Ngannou to win that fight because I was worried for him against Renan, and I had every reason to think that Renan Ferreira might win. Because Ngannou was older, coming off a knockout loss. He just got chinned by Anthony Joshua, and now he's taking on another powerful fighter, 6'8", long reach, one-shot KO power. I thought, damn, this could be a dangerous fight for Ngannou, but I had faith in Ngannou. I'm like, nah, Ngannou's sleeping him in the first. And Ngannou came back to MMA after 2 years like he never left. Like the evolution that Ngannou showed towards the end of his UFC career, it still showed today in the PFL against Renan Ferreira. Because Ngannou knew striking with Renan was a little bit risky, so he wrestled, and once he took Renan down, I knew it was a wrap. I'm like, yeah, he's knocking him out on the ground, which is exactly what he did. And this just makes me wish Francis Ngannou stayed in the UFC or would just come back somehow, because the biggest fight you can make for John Bones Jones is that fight with Francis Ngannou. But it's sadly never going to happen because Ngannou's not coming back. Dana White will never cross promote. And John Jones, I don't see him ending his UFC contract to go to the PFL. I just don't see it. That would have been a great fight. That would have been an insane fight. That would have been an insane fight in Ngannou and Aspinall. And I tell you what, Tom Aspinall could have either been Ngannou's biggest stylistic threat or one of his easiest matchups. Like, what could make Aspinall dangerous for Francis is I think he has a grappling advantage. I think he's better than him on the ground. He's very sneaky and slick with his takedowns. I think he's slicker with his hands. I think his hands are faster than Ngannou. He's not that easy to hit. He's a very good counterpuncher, and he has a lot of power. And I think if anyone is chinning Francis in MMA, it's Tom Aspinall. But Tom Aspinall does leave openings to get caught when he is going forward. When Aspinall blitzes, he leaves his chin in the air. And that's where Francis Ngannou could chin him. Like, whoever lands that fight first is winning. Like, I could see that fight playing out like it's a leg kick for leg kick battle where they're both trading hard leg kicks, but Ngannou's leg kicks start to really affect Aspinall. And then maybe Aspinall shoots a takedown but can't get it because Ngannou's so strong and his legs are already battered. And then Aspinall's being timid and Ngannou's just pressuring him. And then maybe Aspinall might panic blitz and then get caught coming in. And all this might happen inside one round. Or or something crazy could happen. Aspinall might just catch Ngannou like he did Sergey Pavlovich and knock him out. Or what if he takes down Ngannou and subs him? Like, it's possible. Aspinall just is that good. And he is that next level of super heavyweight. But Ngannou is Ngannou, man. But, man, if Ngannou never left the UFC, I think he would have been the heavyweight GOAT, most likely. Like, if he gets through John Jones after beating Gon, then he beats Stipe again in the trilogy. They probably do that trilogy. He wins again. And then they would probably do a Gon rematch. He beats Gon again. He beats Aspinall. He would have had so many title defenses if he beat John Jones, I think. Nah, Tom is not easy for anyone, but he scares me how he gets wild sometimes. Yeah, that's the problem, and that's why I said he could be one of Ngannou's easiest fights. Like, Ngannou could catch him early because of Tom's reckless abandonment in his striking sometimes. But do you remember when Sergey Pavlovich got so many comparisons to Francis Ngannou? Well, that aged horribly because now we're seeing Pavlovich is not doing well, and I don't think Ngannou would lose to Alexander Volkov. I think he'd chop that tree down and crumble him. And I think Ngannou would have easily, and I mean easily, destroyed Sergey Pavlovich. Sergey is just too slow and too open. I got Tom over anyone until proven otherwise. Okay, what about Tom versus John Jones? Who wins that, Perez? Tom Bones Francis in the UFC would have been great. We probably won't see any of them fight. Yeah, this is just like the Fedor situation all over again. It's like how you had Fedor competing in the same era as some of the best UFC heavyweights in the world, but he never fought them. I mean, I know he fought Arlovsky and Tim Sylvia, but those guys were not the best. They weren't that good. I mean, they were good, but compared to like Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez, those would have been more interesting fights for Emelianenko. Like anytime before the Verdum fight, I think Fedor in the UFC would have been very interesting. But yeah, Tom, Bones, and Francis, that's the big three. But what I'm hoping, man, I hope that if John beats Stipe, please, John Jones, don't retire. You have the chance to give the fans the fight that they really want, which is the fight with Tom Aspinall. But unfortunately, if John Jones doesn't retire, he's gonna look at other options like Alex Pereira, which is one of the easiest fights for John Jones. Like the only thing Poatan has on him is striking. That's it, and power. But he's not stopping the wrestling of John Jones, and I think John knows that. Like he's saying, "Oh well, Alex is a legend," but no, he wants the Alex fight because one, Alex is a big superstar. He's the biggest name that will make him the most money and the easiest matchup you could give him. But someone like Tom, that's different because Aspinall is well-rounded, good takedown defense, good wrestling, as well as being a threat on the feet to John Jones. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. And I also hope Magomed Ankalaev defeats Alexander Rakic and gets a title shot. And I think I was about to talk about this on this live before I kind of stepped out quickly to use the washroom. But yeah, I'm kind of worried about that fight, man. Hank needs to win, bro. He needs to win. And I mean, so does Rakic because he can't afford to lose 3 in a row. But it would be, you cannot lie to me and tell me it would not be better for the division if Ankalaev beat Rakic and earned a title shot at Alex Pereira. That's the last biggest fight you could give Alex at 205, and that's the last biggest challenge you could give him. Because if Rakic wins, who's going to be excited to see Poatan KO the guy who Yuri Prohaska destroyed and who Jan beat? Like, come on. I don't want to see Rakic go out there and be a sacrificial lamb to Alex Pereira. No one wants to see that. I want to see Alex Pereira versus the arguable uncrowned champ of the division who should have beat Jan and someone who has the threat of the wrestling. Not another lame striker. Not to say Yuri or Hill were lame or Khalil was lame, but still. I'm just sick of Alex being benefited by being given these stylistic favorable matchups. That would be good, but Poatan saying he does not want to fight for an interim belt. If it's going to move up, it's going to be for the undisputed belt. So we'll see, but I wouldn't mind that. Bones is not fighting him. Probably not. Yeah, I know. Enough ducking Tom Aspinall. Take the goddamn fight, bro. John Jones is just weird like that, though. I'm a John Jones fan, but it's no secret that he delayed his comeback because Francis Ngannou was the champion. Like, do you remember when after Stipe versus DC3, John said, "I'm coming to heavyweight," and he vacates the belt? I feel like if Stipe would have beat Francis Ngannou again, I think John Jones would not have hesitated to come back in 2021 to fight Stipe for the undisputed heavyweight title. I do not believe that he took 3 years to come back because of bulking. I don't believe that because John Jones was already buff. He already was buff in 2021. Like if you see John Jones like at the Hall of Fame ceremony in 2021, John Jones was huge. Like the night where he crashed out in Vegas and abused his wife in front of his kids and got arrested, John Jones was looking beefy, my guy. John was looking huge. So he could have came back and fought at heavyweight if he wanted to. I think what happened here is John Jones was like, okay, if I'm going to come back and risk getting my jaw broken by Francis Ngannou, then I want to get paid an X amount of money to take this fight. Which, I don't blame John Jones. If you're going to take a risky fight and you're one of the biggest names in the UFC and one of the greatest of all time, I think you should be getting paid. But John Jones was difficult to deal with to get that fight because he knew Ngannou was a bad matchup. Now, I do think eventually he was going to fight Ngannou in 2023 if Ngannou didn't leave, because I do feel like the UFC did finally come to terms with John Jones, but when they came to terms with John, they couldn't come to terms with Ngannou, which is sad. But I do wish John Jones would have just sucked it up and just fought Francis Ngannou like in 2021, 2022 or something. Well, maybe not 2022 because that's when Ngannou was injured, and I feel like no knees Ngannou would get submitted by John Jones and lose easily. I want to see John against a healthy, dangerous Francis Ngannou. Yeah, I know. That would just be pointless. Like, what's the point of having an interim champion if you're not going to defend your belts against him? It's just stupid. Bones' whole thing is being undefeated. He won't risk losing that on his way out, and that's exactly why he's hesitant about taking the Aspinall fight. And I'm telling y'all, if Curtis Blades knocked out Tom Aspinall, John Jones would have been sounding off on Twitter and talking all kinds of crap about Tom, saying, "This is what happens when you hype up an interim champion." But it didn't happen, and John Jones was quiet. That boy was quiet. If it was up to me, I would have Bones, Francis, and Tom fight each other a couple of times. Same here, bro. I would give anything to see Francis fight Tom Aspinall, and anything to see Tom fight John, and to see Francis fight John Jones. Those are the three biggest fights you can make in the heavyweight division. And if we can't have Ngannou against either, we at least need to have Bones and Aspinall against each other. Like the Stipe fight just doesn't interest me. It just does not excite me. I want to see it for the simple fact that it's two legends going at it, and Stipe versus Jones was always a fight that's been in speculation for years, and it finally gets to happen. But it's just like Stipe has done nothing in the last 3 years. He's not fought since 2021 when he got chinned by Francis Ngannou. I would rather see John Jones fight someone else like Tom, who I think is more of a threat to him than Stipe. Not to say Stipe is not dangerous for John Jones, that he can't win, but it just doesn't feel likely. Like if Bones Miocic were to happen like 3 years ago, I'd be more interested in that fight. But now I feel like that fight lost its appeal when John pulled out of UFC 295 and when Tom Aspinall broke through and became the interim champion. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and if he beats Magomed, then go to heavyweight. Go to heavyweight if you beat Ankalaev. Peak Stipe would have been pro. Yeah, I agree. I think Stipe in his prime would definitely give John problems. Not right now though. Yeah, probably not. I think John beats Tom. He could. He could win. Maybe. Like I could see him maybe out wrestling Aspinall, but who knows, man. But one way I could see John winning against Aspinall is we've not seen Tom fight anywhere past the first. Well, he did fight. He did go into round 2 against Arlovsky, but we haven't seen Tom go into rounds 3, 4, and 5. And maybe John Jones could weather the early storm and drag him into deep waters and drown him. That is possible. That I could see happening. That might be how John could win the fight. Because we're yet to see how Tom would look over the long course of 25 minutes. Because all of his fights are so quick. I mean, who else are they going to give Magomed? Or who else are they going to give Poatan if they skip Magomed? I mean, I guess they could give Blachowicz a rematch because the last fight was close, but who wants to see that? Jan has not fought since that fight. He's going to be way worse when he comes back. I think he needs a tune-up fight. If Alex Poatan Pereira is his next opponent on his comeback, he's getting beaten worse than the first fight. I'm telling you. It's going to be ugly because since their last fight, Poatan has looked better and better and looked like more of a killer since. I think Jan is too old. Got a gift against Reyes and not risking against Tom. Yeah, that Reyes decision was pretty questionable. And John had quite a few like close fights towards the end of his light heavyweight run. Like close fights with Tiago and Reyes. Him struggling with Reyes was a little bit understandable, even though the fight didn't age well. I kind of got it because Reyes is big, has the boxing, has the takedown defense. But what really frustrated me about the Thiago Santos fight is I felt like John could have dominated Santos if he wanted to, but he chose not to grapple. He took a risky approach by fighting Thiago Santos at his own game, playing a kickboxing match against a prime Thiago Santos. And if you look at what's that guy's name that Adesanya knocked out in his UFC debut? Rob Wilkinson. If you look how Rob Wilkinson beat Thiago Santos and how Glover Teixeira beat Thiago Santos with the wrestling, imagine if John Jones actually tried to grapple, he would have destroyed Thiago. And that was my prediction that he was going to take down Thiago and maul him on the ground, but he chose to strike with him and make that fight closer than it needed to be, which was dumb. Whereas I guess against Reyes, there really wasn't much he could have done differently because I don't think he could have wrestle fucked Dominic that easily. I feel like his only hope against Reyes was Reyes gassing out, which he did, but Reyes didn't really start to slow down until like the 4th and the 5th round. And John Jones, even if he won that fight, he definitely did not win the he did not win 49-46. Because I know, like, one judge gave John 4-1, which is dumb. John did not beat him 4-1. And I don't know if... Wasn't round 2 considered maybe a round for John Jones? I gotta watch that fight again, actually, and I'm going to. But I remember watching live. I thought John is down on the cards, and he's gonna lose this fight if he can't finish him. And then when he didn't finish him, I'm like, well, fuck, John Jones might have lost. And then when Bruce stands still, I'm like, okay, well, I'm a John fan. I'm happy he won, but I don't know about that. And I felt kind of bad for Reyes because I felt like he kind of deserved to win that. Nah, Bones just won the fifth. Reyes won 1-3. Fourth was debatable. Yeah, didn't Reyes like land a flurry against the cage in round 4? But no, John was bobbing and weaving. Those shots didn't land. So I say John definitely won the fourth because he was pressuring, landing a lot, getting takedowns, and he did win the fifth. I do think that is Reyes' fault, though, for coasting. I mean, maybe he didn't have a choice because his cardio was failing him. But I think Reyes should not have coasted in that fifth round. I think he should have just fought to the very end against John Jones. And maybe he could have won rounds 4 and 5. Yeah, actually, I remember that. I remember Reyes did start good in round 4, and then John ended the round better. So maybe there is a case for one Dominic Reyes, actually. It's just crazy to me though how like John Jones went from struggling with Santos and Reyes to then smoking Cyril Gane inside one round, which makes me believe John Jones's excuse is that, you know what, John was just bored and just wasn't afraid. He just was getting bored at 205 because he really had nothing left to prove. He was already champion for like 10 years. What else was there for him? So maybe that's why John Jones was declining in his performances, although I feel like John was declining because of USADA, because he was off the juice, and I feel like that was kind of diminishing his performances a little bit. And guys were kind of figuring out his game. And maybe John Jones came back and was dominant because you know what? Maybe John Jones needed that time off. Maybe John Jones was getting burnt out. And that does happen to fighters. And maybe John taking 3 years off was the best thing ever to happen to John Jones in terms of coming back refreshed. It's a new division. John Jones is built different physically now. He's much more bulkier and stronger. So I don't know. I guess heavyweight John is better than 205 John. And then you combine that with he had time off and he had time to recover and he just had time to refresh. That could be it. I don't know. UFC 307 really should have been Alex versus Magomed instead of Roundtree. I totally agree, man. But the UFC, they acted like Magomed was only willing to fight in Abu Dhabi, which couldn't be further from the freaking truth. Magomed said he will fight him anywhere. He said he'll fight him in October. And Alex was saying, no, I want to fight sooner than October. And then Alex ends up fighting in the same month, 4 weeks prior, and not against Ankalaev, which is insane. It's really why the UFC is protecting Alex from Magomed. Yup. He was looking bad on the feet against Gane, but that was the first time in a long time we've seen John Jones ever look dominant in a fight and get a finish. That's what I'm saying. So even though he looked a little bit slow, like he wasn't really getting hit, he was applying good pressure. Like the only good shot Gane landed was that one nut shot, the one low blow. And then John Jones got an easy takedown, which is something John has not got in a long time. And then John Jones got a finish on the ground, which is something he also hasn't had in like 5 years prior when he fought Gustafson. And that's why I'm saying John Jones came back looking better than ever because he was more dominant than he's ever been in a long time. What was your worst night was my best night, my friend. I was happy when John Jones and Grasso won, man. And I picked them both to win. That was a glorious night. I went undefeated on main card predictions, and I predicted exactly how Grasso was going to defeat Shevchenko. I called exactly how the fight was going to go. And I was right about John, but I expected a longer, drawn out, harder fight. But either way, I was right that John Jones was going to win. But my pick was John by decision, actually. And I was so happy when Grasso became champion. It felt so good, man, to finally see her become the champion. After a few years being in the flyweight division and believing in her and hyping her up, it was a good feeling. I heard the real reason why they skipped over Magomed because he's boring, and wasn't going to give Alex a good fight, just a rumor. But if that's true, they messed up, in my opinion. That is messed up. I mean, was Ankalaev boring when he knocked Johnny Walker the fuck out and broke his nose? Was that boring? That was pretty exciting to me. Getting a knockout, having an exciting finish should be enough to earn you a title shot, no? Doesn't the UFC want exciting fighters to fight for the belt? Like, come on. Ankalaev is not that boring. He's not that boring, honestly. I don't think his fight with Jan was boring. I don't think his fight with Smith was that boring, and he smashed him on the ground. He was boring against Santos, but prior he put a clinic against Volkan Oezdemir, and then prior to his fight with Nikita was boring, but he knocked out Iwan Kutelaba, and then the first Kutelaba fight was absolutely hectic. So Ankalaev can have exciting fights. And Ankalaev hardly wrestles in his fight, so there's a good chance he would give Poatan a chance to strike. And he would take risks on the feet against Poatan. Isn't that what the UFC wants? So that's just crazy to me. And it annoys me how Pereira is saying, yeah, I might not give him the title shot because he's running his mouth. It's like, bitch, stop ducking. If Ankh wins and you're not leaving the division, just fight Magomed Ankalaev, man. Stop being a pussy. Seriously. And I'm not saying Alex is a pussy, but he's making himself look like one. He's making himself kind of look like a bitch by not fighting Ankalaev. I'm sorry. I know Alex would absolutely knock me the fuck out and destroy me if he wanted to. And I know I'm not a cage fighter, but still, it's not a good look avoiding Magomed Ankalaev. If you're the best in the world, then you have to be willing to take on the toughest challenges. I'm sorry. That's true. That's true. Ankalaev is very similar to Makhachev in that sense. And I mean, if Ankh would wrestle more in his fights, he would be unstoppable. Like, if he would have wrestled against Jan in the earlier rounds, he would have been champion, for sure. I mean, I thought he beat Jan, like, rounds 3, 4, and 5. But it is his fault, though. It is his fault for... It's his fault for not wrestling sooner. But you know what's crazy? Could you imagine if Ankalaev didn't get a 10-8 round on any of those cards? Ankh would have lost by split decision, and that would have been even worse. Because there's no... Like, that would have sucked to see Jan become a 2-time champ off of a performance like that. That would have been so shitty. Because I don't think Jan deserved to win that fight. And even he knew it. Islam might be right. If Ankalaev chooses to wrestle consistently, he will beat Alex Pereira. And we're seeing wrestlers are taking over in title fights. So wrestlers on top. We got Islam, we got Merab. Wei Li's a complete fighter with wrestling. So is Valentina Shevchenko. And who else? There's so many and John Jones. John Jones is another wrestler who's the champion. So yeah, Dricus Duplessis has wrestling and he's on top of the division. So and then Bilal Muhammad as well. So Anka Live could end up being an addition of champ grapplers in the UFC. It feels like Pereira is like the last remaining pure striker champion in the UFC because even Topuria has wrestling and can use it in his fights. Yeah, I agree. If Dana continues mistreating his fighters, then yeah, he's going to keep hurting his brand. But honestly, Dana doesn't care. Every fighter is expendable and replaceable in Dana's eyes. Even if you're like one of the best fighters in the world, even if you're the best women's MMA fighter like Cyborg, or you could be the best heavyweight, or even maybe a dark horse at middleweight and a potential future middleweight champ like Gegard Mousasi in his prime. Dana does not care how good you are. You are just another expendable UFC fighter, and he can always replace you with someone else. That's Dana's mindset. And if Dana really cared about his fighters, he would do everything in his power to keep them and negotiate with them so that he can keep them around. Oh, that's going to be a wild fight, Bilal and Shavkat. That's going to be a war. I don't know who's going to win that fight because Ratmanov has 100% takedown defense, but he's never been tested against the level of wrestling of Bilal. Shavkat, I think, is a better striker, but Bilal's underrated on the feet. Shavkat doesn't have great striking defense, and Bilal has better cardio, so... but then Shavkat could finish him, though. But Bilal's hard to finish, and every time I picked against Bilal, I've been wrong, so I don't know. We'll see. Tom is the backup fighter, and I know for a fact that if either one gets injured, neither of them are fighting Tom on short notice. Well, they have to, or the card's going to be destroyed. Because what are they going to do? Have freaking Oliveira Chandler headline that card with a shitty, underwhelming undercard? Like, hell no. They have to take the fight. Otherwise, they need a backup fighter for someone who's gonna fight Tom if, say John Jones won't or Stipe won't. They need to have Alexander Volkov ready, just in case. Or maybe Cyril Gahn ready, just in case. Even though both guys have fights booked against each other, fighters who have had fights booked still weighed in as backups before, so it could happen. John already destroyed a card years ago when he was in his prime and didn't want to fight Chael Sonnen on short notice, and they canceled the whole card. Yeah, that was dumb. Like, I don't know why he did not fight Chael Sonnen on short notice. That was going to be such an easy win, like it was when he had a full camp. It's like, with how that fight went, I feel like John Jones wasted like a whole 7 months and a 3-month season of tough with Chael Sonnen just to smoke him in one round. Like, John Jones, in my opinion, should have took the Chael Sonnen fight in September 2012, smoked him, and then rescheduled the Dan Henderson fight later down the line. And I feel bad for Dan Henderson because Dan should have got a light heavyweight title shot. He should have got the fight with John Jones. But because John Jones fought Vitor on short notice 4 weeks later, and then fought Chael like in April and did tough with him, it forced Dan Henderson to take another fight with Lyoto Machida. He loses, and there goes his title shot. I remember back in 2018 when Brandon Schaub exposed Dana for the dirty individual he is after he shitted on Francis after the Derek Lewis fight. Yeah, that was ridiculous how Dana treated Ngannou. I mean, he went from hyping up Francis like crazy, hyping up his Ford Escort power, and then the moment he loses to Stipe and Lewis, he switches up on him. And when Ngannou becomes champion and is on top, Dana White did not switch back. He still disrespected Francis Ngannou, and it led to the fallout of Ngannou in the UFC. John Jones is not the I'll fight anyone type of guy. He's all about strategy and needing time to have a full camp and be ready for someone. But he didn't need time or a full camp to be ready for fucking Chael Sonnen. Beating Chael Sonnen was the easiest, straightforward path to victory kind of fight for him. Because where does Chael beat him? Does Chael out wrestle him? No. Chael is outmatched in size and strength. Chael has terrible striking, no knockout power. He's not out striking John. He's not knocking out John. He's not out wrestling John Jones. John could have took that fight on 8 days' notice and took down Chael in the first and grounded him in the first round like he did on the full camp. Now, Tom, I can understand needing more time to prepare for him, but Chael Sonnen of all people, like, get out of here. The only guy that John Jones fought on short notice was OSP, and that ended up being one of John Jones's worst performances, and the excuse was OSP had an awkward style and it was short notice. Yeah, I agree. Dana is a good promoter, but he's not a good person. You're right, though. That is proof that he's not going to fight anyone anywhere on short notice, even if it's easy money. Yep. That's ridiculous. Oh, if you remember when Khabib was supposed to fight Tony for the 5th time, then Max stepped in, someone else, then it ended up being Alaquinta a couple days. He had 4 different opponents, and Khabib was willing to fight anybody, from Anthony Pettis, who was willing to step in, to Michael Chiesa, Paul Felder. It didn't matter, and they chose Iaquinta, I guess because he was like the highest ranked, or no, he wasn't the highest ranked lightweight. But maybe they didn't give it to Pettis because he was coming off a loss. Maybe that's why. And maybe they didn't give it to Chiesa either because he was coming off a loss too. Actually, yeah, that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. Why they chose Al. But again, John Jones could have done what Khabib did. Khabib did not need a full camp to prepare for Al Iaquinta. He needed a few days' notice, and it was one of the easiest fights of his life. Yep. It's crazy how people hate on Khabib when he's more down to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime than John Jones. And you're right, it is on them to stop him. And yeah, Oscar doesn't like Dana. That would be crazy if a fighter did put hands on Dana, but the closest we ever saw that ever happening was Tito Ortiz and Dana back when they had beef. I remember there was talks of them having like a boxing match, but it never happened. I think Tito would have beat his ass, though, because Tito's a professional fighter and Dana's not. Al was able to stuff a lot of takedowns too, but Khabib kept jabbing him all night and took him down a couple times. Yeah, I mean, Khabib didn't really need his wrestling to win that fight. It was easy. Yeah, I wish Tito showed up against Dana, though. All right, I'm gonna end this live now because it's been a while and it's late. So, but thank y'all for joining this live. I might go live again soon. I got more content coming out as well. So yeah, peace.